All right, every year in the NHL, some teams pass the captaincy from one player to the next. And usually that's very clean because either your captain retired, your captain got traded, some new leaders emerge, and the C on the chest moves naturally to the next guy, right? But sometimes it goes completely sideways. And today I'm going to walk you through four of the weirdest captaincy transitions in NHL history, from Hall of Famers coming to town to the youngest captain ever. And then I'm going to finish up with the one that happened right here in Raleigh just a couple of years ago. And I think was embodied why we won the Stanley Cup. So let's start with the transition that made a Hall of Famer publicly regret it. So July 28th, 1997, the Vancouver Canucks signed Mark Messier to a 3-year, $18 million contract, which was a massive deal at the time. So Messier is 37 years old at this point. He had 6 Stanley Cups to his name, 5 with the Oilers through the 80s, 1 with the Rangers in 1994. And they had actually played Vancouver in that Stanley Cup, Rangers Vancouver, 3 years earlier. So now he's coming to that organization. Trevor Linden had been the Canucks captain for 7 straight seasons. He got the C at age 21, at the time, one of the youngest captains in NHL history. And he had led that team to the Cup final in 1994 against Mark Messier. So when Messier arrived, Linden gave up the captaincy. So then in November of that same season, the Canucks fired head coach Tom Renney and brought in Mike Keenan, the same coach who led Messier's Rangers to the 94 Cup. Linden and Keenan clashed. The team started to collapse. Vancouver went 25-43. They finished 7th in the division. And then Linden was traded. So he'd been the face of the Canucks for a decade, and he was traded to the Islanders. Messier finished the 3 years in Vancouver without a single playoff appearance and some of the worst hockey in his career. So years later in 2021, Messier said this: "If I had to do it again, I would not have accepted the captaincy and tried to do it in a different way. I would have never done that again because it's hard to unseat a sitting captain." So basically, a Hall of Famer came to town who had beat this Vancouver team 3 years earlier, took the C, kind of blew up the room, drove the other captain out of town, and then publicly regretted it later. So that's just transition number 4. But the strangest transitions, not always going to come from Hall of Famers coming to town. Sometimes it has to do with the coach. That brings me to Vincent Lecavalier, who was drafted first overall by the Lightning in 1998. Art Williams had famously called him the Michael Jordan of hockey. No pressure, right? So 2 years later, March of 2000, Lecavalier was named captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning at 19 years old, youngest captain in NHL history. Younger than Steve Yzerman had been in Detroit. His first year as captain, 68 games, 23 goals, 51 points, broke his foot. So then comes the 2001-2002 season, and Tampa Bay stripped him of the captaincy. 2 reasons. Management publicly said he was too young. Privately, he was clashing with John Tortorella. If you know Tortorella, you know he doesn't do things halfway or subtle. So everyone knew there was tension. Here's the twist, though. Tortorella later said publicly that he watched Lecavalier mature after losing the C. Of course he's going to say that. And Lecavalier's career did take off. So next year he had 33 goals, 78 points. After that, the following year, they won the Stanley Cup. After that, he got the Rocket Richard Trophy, leading goal scorer. After that, Tampa Bay named him captain again a few years later, almost 7 years after they'd stripped him. And in 2018, they retired his number 4. So he was the youngest captain in NHL history, got stripped by his coach, wins a cup without the C, and gets it back 7 years later. That's transition number 3. The next one, guy gave it up. November 14th, 2011. Colorado Avs have Milan Hejduk as their captain mid-season. He's been an alternate before that. First European-born captain in Avalanche history. Hejduk was 35 years old, former Rocket Richard Trophy winner, Stanley Cup champ previously, very respected player in the organization, but his role was diminishing, and his ice time had dropped to about 17 minutes a game. That was, I think, the lowest or second lowest of his career. So over the final 20 games of the season, that number dropped down even to 13 minutes. He was playing on the fourth line, and in his mind, he didn't think he was captain material anymore. So in May, he signed a 1 year, $2 million contract to come back to the Avs because he wanted one more shot. By September, Hejduk informed the coaching staff he was relinquishing the captaincy voluntarily. His quote, "The captain should be somebody with a significant role on the team, probably on the top two lines, which I was not last year. It kind of feels weird when you're playing on the fourth line, third and fourth line, and being captain. It didn't feel right." Then he endorsed the guy who should get the C, Landeskog, at 19 years old, Calder Trophy winner, 22 goals, 30 assists as a rookie. Hejduk's quote was, "He's going to be, in my mind, the franchise player for a long time. He's young, but he's got a good head on his shoulders." Landeskog took the C at 19 years, 286 days old, 11 days younger than Sidney Crosby had been when Crosby took the captain of the Penguins. Youngest, now the new youngest captain in NHL history. Hejduk stayed on as an alternate. Landeskog took the C. And Landeskog, still the captain today, lifted the Stanley Cup. A veteran walked in the office, said, "I don't deserve this anymore. Give it to the kid on the team." Kid became probably one of the greatest captains in Avs history. All right, but none of these matter to me as much as the one that happened in Raleigh does. So before the 2018-2019 season, the Carolina Hurricanes named Justin Williams a captain. That season, Williams led the Hurricanes, as we all know, to end a drought and got us to the Eastern Conference Final. So Mr. Game 7's back, right? But he was an unrestricted free agent after that. And so September 2nd, 2019, he tells us and announces that he's going to take a break from the NHL. He's not retiring. He's not signing elsewhere. He's just going to take a break. His quote was this: "This is the first time in my life that I've felt unsure of my aspirations with regard to hockey." So Hurricanes have a problem. He just got us to the Eastern Conference Finals. Again, things are starting to ramp up. And our captain says, who just basically got us out of being irrelevant because we hadn't had much playoff success through the 2010s, as we know. So in September, Rod Brind'Amour announces Jordan Staal as the 9th captain in Hurricanes history. Staal was 31, longest serving Hurricane on the roster, starting his eighth season with Carolina. He'd been co-captain before, and Brind'Amour said he's the obvious choice. I think at that point, Martinook and Slavin got the alternate captains. So clean transition, right? Or so it would have seemed. But then on January 8th of 2020, Justin Williams signs a 1-year contract to come back and play for the Hurricanes. It was like a league minimum deal, I think, with plus some bonuses built in there. So suddenly the former captain is back on the roster in the middle of the season with the new captain's first half season in the books. So suddenly there's a bit of controversy, and reports at the time were thinking Williams wouldn't wear a letter. Staal was captain now, Martinook and Slavin were the alternates. Wasn't room for Williams to be a leader on the team. So would he come back without a letter, without a title, just a veteran presence for a run? So Williams ended up playing 20 regular season games plus a bubble playoff run, and that was the end of his playing career. But here's the cool thing. Jordan Staal has been the captain ever since. And when he came back, Justin Williams said that he was going to try and provide leadership, but it was Jordan Staal's team now. And he didn't try to contest it at all. And I think that speaks to the organization as a whole, and the class of the organization and the leadership that is actually there and the trust the guys have in one another. So straight playoff appearances afterwards, trips to Eastern Conference Finals, Jordan Staal lifting the Stanley Cup as the captain. And then I don't want to forget this part of the story. Justin Williams, the captain who led the team out of a decade of losing, took over that intermediary captain role, came back to still help us, didn't make it a big deal, didn't ask for the C back. It wasn't just a captaincy transition. That was the franchise finding the captain that we needed at the right moments both times. And that was transition number 1 for me. Sometimes the path's a little bit awkward, but taking the C at the most awkward moment a couple times has led to teams and franchises lifting the cup. So if I missed any, leave them in the comments below. I'd like to know. And if you're a Caniac like me, hit like and subscribe so we can talk about this fun stuff together.